How about that past week for the Bulls, ladies and gentlemen? The Bulls won all three of their games from the week, defeating the Hornets, the Knicks, and the Nets, and improved their record to 16-8, only a half game behind the Nets for the first seed in the East. Didn't think I would be saying those words with over a quarter of the way through the season, but here we are. The Bulls are rolling, and let's see if they can keep it up into this week, and that's what we'll be previewing in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So the Bulls have another 3 games this week, which is nice because this will be back-to-back weeks in which the Bulls only have 3 games instead of the packed schedule of games that they had before. Gives them a bit more rest. It allows for guys like Kobe and Javonte to recover after being out due to the health and safety protocol. But the Bulls will be doing more traveling this week, which feels like they've been doing a lot recently rather than having longer homestands followed by road trips. They're kind of just doing a lot of back and forth. The Bulls will kick off the week of games tonight at the United Center against the Denver Nuggets. Then they'll take on the Cavs in Cleveland on Wednesday. Then they'll be off until Saturday for much needed rest before they take on the Heat in a revenge matchup, this time in Miami. So let's start with tonight's matchup against the Nuggets. Now, the Nuggets received some unfortunate news recently in that Michael Porter Jr. will be undergoing surgery and will be out for the rest of the season. This also happening right after they offered him a max extension from his rookie contract. And of course, Jamal Murray is also still out after suffering that ACL injury last season. But the Nuggets still have their star player and reigning MVP in Nikola Jokic, who was out the last time these two teams met. And even though Jokic was out, the Nuggets still gave the Bulls a run for their money and made it a competitive game in Denver, although the Bulls were also without Vucevic at that time. So with both Vucevic and Jokic back, it'll be a fun battle between these two big men. Really, it's going to be a tough battle for Vucevic because with all the other injuries to the Nuggets, Jokic is going to be the Nuggets' go-to guy and main scoring threat. Obviously, Aaron Gordon has been a big piece for them with both Murray and Michael Porter Jr. being out. And he actually had a big game when the Bulls faced them last time. But really, Jokic is going to be their main go-to scorer. The guy is leading the Nuggets in every statistical category aside from blocks, averaging 26.1 points per game, 13.6 rebounds, and 6.4 assists. You have to remember that Jokic is one of the best passing big men in the league. And so for Vucevic, you're going to need a big game from him defensively in this one. Jokic is still going to get his. He's not an easy big man to handle and keep at bay no matter what you do, but what you can do is limit his passing ability by getting in the way of passing lanes, deflecting kickouts from the paint. I mean, one of the reasons the Bulls went after Vucevic in the trade last season, among other things, of course, was to actually be a big-bodied presence and have a big man that can actually compete against some of these big centers in the league like Jokic and Embiid, because prior to that, the Bulls were getting absolutely destroyed in the paint on a nightly basis with Wendell Carter Jr. and Lauri Markkanen. So even for Vucevic, if he can contain Jokic to even 20 points on offense, but also can box him out so that he's not able to get offensive rebounds, that is a big win for the Bulls. Then, of course, with no Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, DeRozan and Lavine have to take advantage on offense, although Will Barton has actually been a solid defender for them. But with the Nuggets being fairly limited in the backcourt, this is the time for Lavine and DeRozan to expose their weaknesses and feast on offense. And really the same applies for Lonzo Ball, who, hasn't been as consistent on the offensive end this season. This is a game where you expect him to be able to get a fair amount of open looks and should take advantage of that as a result. Then the Bulls are off on Tuesday, heading to Cleveland to take on the Cavs. And the Cavs are an interesting team this season because you look at their roster and they're young, with talent, but at the same time, you also think they wouldn't have been able to fit well together with the large front court that they have. And because it's the Cavs, you just always have to assume that they're going to be bad whenever LeBron isn't on the team, but somehow they're actually playing decently. They're currently 13-11 and tied for 7th in the East with the Boston Celtics. Believe it or not, they're only 2.5 games behind the Bulls. So, to be honest, I don't really know what to make of this Cavs team because we saw them in the preseason twice, and the first time the Bulls absolutely embarrassed them. But of course, preseason play is different from the regular season. Honestly, the biggest problem I see from this game with the Bulls, especially with Javonte Green being out, is that the Bulls are just going to be outsized by the Cavs because they have their outstanding rookie in Evan Mobley, which looks like they finally hit on a franchise player after having years and years of lottery picks. I would say it's a high likelihood Mobley wins Rookie of the Year. He's a great rim protector, rebounder, and can score. Just an all-around great two-way player, and for being a rookie at just 20 years old is really a good sign if you're a Cavs fan. But aside from Mobley, they also have, in my opinion, a very underrated center in Jarrett Allen. He's probably not worth the contract the Cavs gave him, but overall, he's a very impactful center. And then, of course, They have the former Bull big man in Lauri Markkanen, who has been decent for them. I don't think he's living up to the contract that they gave him, since so far his scoring still isn't what it used to be when he entered the league, and he's doing it on poor efficiency, same that he was doing when he was on the Bulls. But either way, the Cavs are a big team, big size-wise. Oh, and I didn't even mention Kevin Love, another big man who can spread the floor. And I know that he's a buyout candidate that Bulls fans have been wanting to see on the team. So the Cavs have size, but they also actually aren't too shabby in the backcourt. Like, despite even losing Colin Sexton for the season, they still have Darius Garland, who is actually leading their team in scoring and assist and is on track for a breakout year. They have the veteran point guard in Ricky Rubio. They also have Isaac Okoro, Cedi Osman. I'm not saying this is like an insanely talented team, but they have pieces and they have some depth on the roster. Oh, and don't forget Denzel Valentine, of course. I absolutely cannot forget that he's on the roster as well. Now, as I was saying, I think the main challenge on this one for the Bulls is going to be rebounding. Can the Bulls and their small lineup, do they have the athleticism to crash the boards over the Cavs and not give them second chance opportunities by letting a great offensive rebounder and Jarrett Allen get easy putbacks? The Cavs are also a pretty good passing team as well, but with the Bulls and the way that they play defense and their ability to get in the way of passing lanes and deflect passes, I'm not too worried about that, although you have to hope that Caruso will be back in the lineup by then. So this will be another big game for Vucevic, really in battling against Jarrett Allen, but also the Bulls are going to need a strong defensive night from Lonzo, and locking up Garland, needs to keep up that same energy and hard-nosed defense that he played against James Harden the other night. Also, I think we'll need to see another big game from a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. or even Alizé, if Billy Donovan will ever give him some minutes, just because the Cavs are so big, and with Green being out, you're going to need Derrick Jones Jr. play the kind of defense and rim protection we saw him play in the game against the Nets, and also skying high for the boards. Then the Bulls have a couple days off before they head to Miami to take on the Heat, which will be another good test for the Bulls, playing one of the best teams in the East and really a revenge matchup. The last time they played in Chicago, when the Bulls were coming off a back-to-back and came up short despite bringing it close at the end, but really struggled in taking care of the ball in that one. They turned the ball over a lot due to the Heat's defense. Also, the Bulls were completely unprepared going against the Heat's zone defense whenever it was presented. You'd have to think that the Bulls have practiced and prepared in anticipation that the Heat are going to run some more zone. However, unlike in that last game, Bam Adebayo will be out after he tore his UCL and is out indefinitely. So that presents a big opportunity for the Bulls to go inside and feed Vucevic the ball, who has historically struggled against Bam Adebayo. The last time that these two teams met, Vuce had one of the worst games of the season on both ends of the floor. And they're going to need him to step up in this one, with the Heat being shorthanded in the front court. I know, I feel like every one of my weekly preview videos consists of the Bulls needing a big game from Vucevic, but honestly, it's true because we know what we're going to get from Lavine and DeRozan. We know we're going to get great games from them. What's a little more uncertain is what we're going to get from Vucevic, and I've said before, Vucevic is the X factor for this team, because with how consistent Lavine and DeRozan have been, and the fact that they're both elite scorers who are going to put up 25 plus points easily every night, and if Vucevic is doing what he does best, rebounding, being aggressive and posting up in the paint, but also spreading the floor and hitting occasional three-pointers, when Vucevic is on, and at least playing close to that level of a star player we know that he can be, the Bulls are unstoppable. Because if we have three elite scorers who can put up at least 20 points per game, every night, or more for that matter, recently all three actually scored more than 25 points in back-to-back games, which was the first time any trio has done that in consecutive games since 1990 from the Warriors run TMC days. And you add that to the Bulls' defensive prowess from guys like Caruso, Lonzo, and even Derrick Jones Jr. and Javonte Green whenever he's back after clearing protocol. That's a contending team, which I can't believe I'm saying, because I've been saying since the offseason, even with the moves that the Bulls made, that they're still not a contending team yet. But based on what we have seen thus far, and this is even with Vucevic either being out or not even just playing that well with his slow starts, and you got no Patrick Williams, Kobe White has barely played, Caruso's been a bit banged up, and there's still only a half game back behind the top spot in the East. So yes, with the star-level Vuce performance that we expect to see anyway, this Bulls team is a contender. He is the X factor for this team to make a deep playoff run. Anyway, now as for my predictions for this week, which you guys know I always get wrong, but you know what? I'm going to go big, and I'm going to say that the Bulls go 3-0 yet again. They are going to go on a 6-game winning streak. The only game I could see presenting a challenge in this one is against the Nuggets, simply because Jokic is just so dominant. But the Cavs, yes, they're better than most people thought they would be, but the Bulls are still far too talented and experienced to be losing to this younger team, even if the mismatches are there. And then the Heat, I still think it's going to be a tough game, but with no Bam, the hope is that, you take advantage of the mismatch down low, going to Vucevic on most possessions. Of course, you can't get lazy on defense when the Heat have two great scorers in Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, and of course a long-range sniper in Duncan Robinson. But I think the Bulls will learn from their mistakes in the last one and walk away with a win in this one. I want to know what your guys' predictions are for this week. How do you think the Bulls will do in these 3 games? Let me know in the comments. And guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.